Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair and committee members. My name is Timmons Roberts. I'm a professor at Brown University, but I'm speaking for myself today in my capacity as a citizen of the state. I've been working on this issue of climate change since 1991, which makes this my 30th year of learning about and trying to do what I can do about climate change. That's too long, especially because our action has been entirely insufficient. So the first time in Rhode Island, since I've been here, we helped pass the Climate Risk Reduction Act of 2010, where we set up a commission that's been studying this issue that started in 2011, 12, and 13. Then in 2014, we did some technical support work and policy work for this piece of legislation, the Resilient Rhode Island Act. And I'm very proud of the work that we did together with this committee and the Senate Environment Committee and the Senate Policy Office to draft the Resilient Rhode Island Act. I promised in front of this committee in 2014 that I would offer my lab, my Climate and Development Lab, and my own support to the state to help with the technical issues and to understand the policy implications of this legislation and to help you carry it out. And I am doing that today. I've been doing that the entire time. We were very proud of that bill, but we knew at that time that it had a couple of shortcomings. This bill that you have in front of you today addresses those two of the major shortcomings. H73-99 does these two things of updating the goals to 100% emissions reductions by 2050, and secondly, making the targets binding. We knew then that the science was already out of date, and it's gotten more out of date. So the Resilient Rhode Island Act, the 80% target, was based on actually science from the late 1990s. That number of 80% reductions by 2050 came from the Northeast Governors and Eastern Canadian Premiers Agreement on Climate Change from 2002, which said we should reduce emissions by 75 to 85%. But the science has gotten clearer on climate change. The impacts are getting worse. And a lot of those assumptions that we could deal with climate change with just 80% emissions reductions were based on the assumption that we would actually do something, that we would reduce our emissions sharply at that time. And we have not done so. We, before you are barely scratching the surface on our emissions. So we need to update this. As was mentioned by Amy Moses from Conservation Law, there is piles of scientific studies showing that the climate is changing. It's changing worse than we expected and faster. We need to work together to stay under this 2 degrees or maybe 1.5 degrees. That's been my 3 minutes. Wow. Okay. So
I know it's quick, but if you can just quickly wrap it up, please.
Just to conclude that making the targets binding is not the end of the world, as opposed to what you've just heard. That is, Massachusetts did this in 2008. It's been extremely important in moving that state forward towards a renewable future and one that gets the state off of fossil fuels that are indeed, we are not producing any here. We're spending $3 billion a year on fossil fuels. I think it's also important for this legislature to direct the administration on this, and I think this is an opportunity for you to take the next step. It is included in the Resilient Rhode Island Act in paragraph 42-6(2)(2) that there is the possibility of, if there's the possibility of reaching higher targets through cost-effective measures, that we should do so. So it's in that law that we would be here today, 6 years later, making these targets more stringent. So do I wish that this bill went further? Of course. Is it still, do I still strongly support this bill? Absolutely yes. This is the next step in our taking the measures that we need to take as the state of Rhode Island to address the issue of climate change. Thank you very much.